The command deck of Zalari Union's frontier outpost, Station Epsilon 17, was bathed in an ominous red glow as the alarm lights flashed in rapid succession. High Commander Valencourt stood rigid, his 4 black eyes fixed on the massive main display. His dark, obsidian skin reflected the crimson light in jagged streaks, giving him the appearance of a battle-worn statue, though his expression remained composed. His mind was a whirlwind of calculations and worst-case scenarios. In his 30 cycles of service, he had encountered smugglers, warlords, and pirates, but nothing quite like this. The readings on the screen were anomalous, unlike anything their sensors had ever detected. "Commander," came the voice of Officer Sarah Varon, her tendrils coiling and uncoiling with visible unease. Her long, delicate fingers hovered uncertainly over her console, the glow of the screens illuminating her pale blue skin. "These energy readings, they are beyond anything we've ever recorded." Kor's mandibles clicked softly in contemplation. The unknown vessel had appeared out of nowhere, emerging from the radiation-heavy expanse of the Maelstrom Nebula. Normally, ships approaching the station sent transmissions announcing their arrival. This one had remained silent at first. They had assumed it was a drifting hulk, perhaps the remains of some ancient derelict carried through space by the stellar currents. But as the data continued to flow in, the station's automated systems flagged it as an active vessel. "Run a full spectral analysis," Kor ordered, his voice measured but firm. Sarah hesitated before complying. "Understood, Commander." Her hands moved swiftly across the interface, inputting commands to gather a deeper scan. The crew worked with methodical precision, but the tension in the room was palpable. No one spoke as the results appeared on screen, displaying an ominous list of details about the ship's structure and energy composition. "The ship's hull," Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. "It's forged from Omnitech battle plating." Kor turned sharply, his normally stoic expression tightening. "Impossible, that alloy was lost to history over 2 centuries ago." Omnitech battle plating was once the pinnacle of military engineering, a material developed during the height of the Orion Wars. It was said to be nearly indestructible, capable of withstanding direct hits from plasma cannons without so much as a scorch mark. But the war had ended long ago, and the knowledge of its creation had been lost. For a ship to be clad in such armor meant only one thing. This was no ordinary vessel. Sarah continued scanning, her fingers trembling slightly as she analyzed the results. "And the energy readings? Sir, they don't match anything in our archives." Kor took a slow breath. Suppressing the unease creeping into his chest, he stepped closer to the main display, his sharp gaze locked onto the 3-dimensional representation of the ship now floating in the center of the room. It was sleek and jagged, its silhouette eerily predatory. The vessel's hull pulsed intermittently, faint tendrils of blue-white energy slithering across its surface like living lightning. Every instinct in Kor's body screamed that this ship was built for war. "Send a priority alert to the War Council," Kor commanded, "and prepare our defenses." A sharp intake of breath rippled through the bridge crew. Officer Dren Vass, a thick-scaled warrior whose experience in battle was second only to Kor's, stepped forward hesitantly. "Sir," he said cautiously, "I just ran the ship's silhouette through the restricted archives." He turned to face the commander, his slit pupil eyes filled with disbelief. "We have a match, an exact match." Kor felt a cold dread settle in his chest. "From where?" Dren exhaled slowly, as if reluctant to say it aloud. "The Orion War record, sir. That ship is human." A silence so profound it felt suffocating settled over the command deck. Humans. The word itself carried an almost mythical weight. For over 2 centuries, the Zalari Union had treated humanity as a legend, a species that had burned through the galaxy like a supernova before vanishing without a trace. Stories spoke of their technological brilliance, their military prowess, and their relentless adaptability. Some claimed they had conquered entire fleets with a single warship. Others believed they had ascended beyond the material realm, becoming something greater, something untouchable. But none of those tales had ever prepared them for the reality of seeing a human vessel at their doorstep. "High Commander," Sarah's voice was barely audible. "What do we do?" Kor exhaled slowly, forcing himself to think rationally. Panic would only cloud judgment. The station was well defended, but if the stories of human technology were true, no amount of firepower would be enough to stop them. Even if the vessel was alone, It could very well be the precursor to something greater, a vanguard, a warning, a test. We wait, Kor said finally, his voice steady despite the gnawing uncertainty within him. And we watch, but under no circumstances do we provoke them. Across the void, the human warship remained motionless, its presence as silent as the vacuum itself. Then, ever so slightly, it began to move. Captain Evelyn Walker stood at the viewport of the HMS Thunder. Her sharp blue eyes scanning the stars beyond the bridge was quiet, save for the hum of machinery and the occasional soft chime from the monitoring stations. Unlike the panicked officers on the alien surveillance station, her crew moved with practiced precision, each one focused on their role. The mission was proceeding as planned, though the aliens had detected them slightly earlier than expected. "Atlas, status report," she said, her voice calm but commanding. The ship's AI responded immediately, its smooth male voice filling the bridge. "All systems functioning within parameters. Captain, our power signature successfully mimics battle damage. The alien station continues to scan us, but their sensors are incapable of penetrating our quantum shielding." Walker nodded, brushing a stray lock of silver-streaked hair from her face. After 2 decades in deep space, she had learned that patience was often the best weapon. Let them believe they had found a crippled warship, let them think they had the upper hand. It would make the coming interaction all the more interesting. "Engineering report," she commanded. "Stealth systems are operating perfectly," reported First Officer Miller, his grizzled features betraying a small smirk. "They really think we're running on emergency power. If they only knew we could jump to full combat readiness in under 30 seconds. Walker allowed herself a small smile. Her crew was the best the fleet had to offer. Handpicked for this mission, humanity had long known that they would eventually reach this sector of space, and it was critical they made the right impression. Diplomacy and power had to be balanced carefully. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Ross from the sensor station, "I'm picking up increased traffic from the alien station. They're definitely worried. They're trying to be subtle about it, but they're initiating evacuation procedures." Walker exhaled slowly. The alien caution was understandable. Humanity's reputation had clearly preceded them, even here in the frontier, but she had no intention of starting a war. This was about demonstrating strength while establishing peaceful contact, a delicate balancing act, one that humanity had perfected over centuries of space exploration. "Atlas, what's your analysis of their defensive capabilities?" she asked, moving to the Central Command Station. A detailed hologram of the alien station materialized above the table, blue light reflecting off the bridge's polished surfaces. "Their technology is approximately 50 years behind current human standards. Their weapons would be insufficient to penetrate our shields, even at minimal power. However, I detect significant life signs aboard. Approximately 300 civilians among the military personnel." Walker's expression hardened. This was why they had chosen to approach carefully. A show of force was necessary, but unnecessary bloodshed was not. The HMS Thunder could have simply appeared in the middle of their space, guns at the ready, but that wasn't humanity's way, not anymore. "Tactical," she said. "Do you have firing solutions mapped?" "Yes, ma'am," Lieutenant Clark responded from the weapons station. "All key systems mapped and targeted. We can disable their entire defense grid in 23 seconds if needed. Non-lethal options also prepared." Before Walker could reply, a new alert caught everyone's attention. "Captain?" Ross called out urgently. "Long-range sensors detecting multiple ships leaving their nearest military base. Readings suggest 30 vessels. Military grade. They're trying to mask their approach behind the nebula." Walker straightened her uniform. This was the response they had anticipated. The aliens were sending an overwhelming force, hoping to gain an advantage. What they didn't know was that 30 ships wouldn't even scratch Thunder's paint. "Very well," she said. "Let's give them something to think about, Atlas. Power up the outer hull systems. Let them see just a fraction of what we can do." The AI complied, and subtle pulses of energy began rippling across Thunder's surface. Like waves of liquid light, it was a fraction of their true power, but enough to make the aliens reconsider any aggressive actions. "Message from engineering, ma'am," Miller reported. "Chief Thompson says the new reactor is purring like a kitten. We could run at full combat power for 3 months straight if needed." Walker nodded, stepping closer to the viewport. The distant nebula glowed with vibrant colors, a serene backdrop to the escalating tension. Soon, the alien fleet would arrive, expecting to find a crippled human warship. Instead, they would come face to face with a technological titan, a vessel designed for war but wielded with precision and restraint. She turned back to her crew, her voice steady and resolute. "All hands, maintain current stations. Let's show them that humanity knows how to make an entrance." The Galactic Council chamber was still in turmoil as debates raged on. Admiral Stone, his blue scales reflecting the ambient light of the vast chamber, remained steadfast in his position. "We cannot afford to let this human warship dictate the terms of engagement," he barked, his four-fingered hands gripping the edge of his podium. "Every second we hesitate, we risk losing the initiative. We know what they are capable of. History has shown us that when humans enter a conflict, they do not lose." Ambassador Green, standing across from him, narrowed her silver eyes. "And history has also shown us that they do not attack without reason. You want to provoke a force that could destroy us simply because they exist? This is dangerous thinking, Admiral Reckless." The council leader, an aged member of the Zarquin species, whose forearms rested heavily on the ornate table before him, let out a slow, deliberate sigh. "The reality is clear. We do not know their intentions, but we do know that they have not fired upon our forces, nor have they crossed our borders. This is not an act of aggression, at least not yet. We must act with caution." Meanwhile, aboard the HMS Thunder, Captain Walker observed the developing situation with cool precision. The bridge remained silent apart from the quiet beeping of instruments. The holographic displays showed the alien fleet amassing near the nebula, their movements cautious but unmistakable. They were preparing for conflict, and Walker knew it. "Atlas, what's their formation looking like?" she asked, stepping closer to the central command station. The AI responded in its calm, unwavering tone. "Their fleet is forming a broad crescent pattern, designed to encircle us while maintaining a defensive retreat option. Sensor sweeps indicate that their weapons are armed, but they have yet to target us directly. Probability suggests they are weighing their options." Walker crossed her arms, considering the possibilities. "And their station? Have they completed evacuation?" Lieutenant Ross spoke up. "Approximately 70% of their civilian population has been evacuated. The remaining personnel appear to be essential staff, likely working to maintain defensive operations." First Officer Miller smirked. "They're treating us like a ticking bomb." Walker nodded. "Good, let them. That keeps them cautious." She turned her attention back to the main viewport. "We hold position. Keep our power signature low, but be ready to go to full combat status at a moment's notice. We're here to make an impression, not start a war." Back in the Galactic Council chamber, tension continued to rise. General Rock, a massive figure of the heavywelder species, finally spoke. "We have two options. We either open dialogue, or we strike first and hope we can cripple them before they retaliate." Admiral Stone sneered. "Dialogue? Do you think they will listen? They have no need for alliances. If they wanted peace, they would have announced themselves properly, not slithered in from the shadows like a predator watching its prey." Ambassador Green fired back. "Or perhaps they waited to see if we would act with wisdom rather than fear. Perhaps they are testing us just as we are testing them. If we attack now, we will be the aggressors. We will be the ones who initiated hostilities." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. The council leader finally spoke. "There is only one course of action we can take that does not lead to immediate war. We will send an envoy. We will demand an explanation, and if they refuse to answer, then we will reassess our next steps." Admiral Stone's tail twitched in frustration, but he gave a begrudging nod. "Then let us hope they do not see this as a sign of weakness." Minutes later, on the HMS Thunder, a priority message was received. The Alien Council was requesting communication. Captain Walker smirked. "Looks like they've decided to talk. Atlas, open a secure channel. Let's see what they have to say." The screen flickered to life, revealing the image of the council leader, his expression a mixture of caution and curiosity. "Human vessel, you have entered the fringes of our space without prior authorization. State your intentions." Walker kept her expression neutral. "Council members, I am Captain Walker of the HMS Thunder. We have entered this sector to establish contact and assess the political landscape. Our presence is not meant to be a threat, however. We are fully aware of the fear surrounding our species, and we do not take such matters lightly." Admiral Stone scoffed. "You expect us to believe that a warship of your magnitude is here for peaceful observation?" Walker met his gaze evenly. We are here because humanity believes in strength and diplomacy, not in blind aggression. If we intended to attack, your station would already be rubble, and your fleet would be space debris, but instead, we are talking that should tell you everything you need to know." The chamber fell into murmurs once more. General Rock grunted approvingly. "She speaks with the confidence of a warrior. I respect that." Ambassador Green seized the opportunity. "Then perhaps this is a chance for a true dialogue, a way to forge an understanding before conflict becomes inevitable." The council leader nodded slowly. "Very well, Captain Walker, we will discuss terms for a diplomatic meeting, but understand this. We will not bow to human dominance. We demand respect as equals." Walker allowed herself a small smile. "Then we have a starting point, and that is all we need." The transmission ended, and Walker turned back to her crew. "Now let's see if they truly want peace, or if they're just buying time." The galactic balance had shifted, and history was about to be written anew. The Galactic Council chamber had never been this chaotic. Representatives of 12 different species debated, their voices rising in urgency as Admiral Stone's grim report echoed across the vast hall. The holographic projection of the human warship still floated at the chamber's center, a silent yet ominous reminder of the unknown force that had appeared at the edge of their space. Each rotation of the vessel sent fresh waves of unease rippling through the gathered officials. Humanity was more than just a name from legends. It was a warning, an unspoken specter that haunted the edges of galactic history. Now, that specter had returned. Admiral Stone's claws gripped the podium tightly. "Every moment we hesitate is another moment for them to prepare," he roared. "We must act before it's too late. One ship or not, it's human. That alone makes it a threat." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Ambassador Green, her silver-hued skin catching the chamber's artificial light, stood to oppose him. "And risk provoking an enemy whose full strength we do not know. You assume hostility where there may be none. We cannot afford to act recklessly." Stone's tail flicked in frustration. "Do you truly believe they have come in peace? Everything we have ever learned about humans suggests they are the most dangerous species to have ever existed. We should strike first." A deep rumbling voice cut through the argument. General Rock, the representative of the Heavyworlders, leaned forward in his gravity-enhanced chair. "You let fear cloud your judgment. Admiral, my great-grandfather fought alongside humans in the colony wars. Even then, their technology was decades ahead of ours. If this ship carries even a fraction of the firepower that the old tales claim, attacking it outright would be suicide." A hushed silence fell over the room as the implication settled in. The technical officer, still adjusting his uniform nervously, spoke up. "Our sensors indicate that the ship is running on minimal power, possibly damaged, however." He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "We cannot get clear readings. Their hull appears to absorb or deflect most of our scans. It is as if they are shrouded in some kind of technological distortion field." The council leader, an elder of the Velaran species, raised his four hands for silence. "Then we must understand their intentions before we make a fatal mistake. Have they attempted communication?" "None so far," the technical officer confirmed. "But their presence alone has sparked fear among our military ranks. Several fleets have mobilized, and our border stations are preparing for possible confrontation." Ambassador Green's expression grew serious. "Then we must open communications before this spirals into war. We must send a message." Aboard the HMS Thunder, Captain Walker stood with arms crossed, watching the alien station through the viewport. The subtle movements of ships leaving the station had not gone unnoticed. They were evacuating, slowly, subtly, but evacuating nonetheless. Humanity's reputation had clearly reached even this far corner of the galaxy. "Status report," she said, keeping her voice measured. "Atlas, the ship's AI, responded at once. The station continues to scan us, but their sensors are insufficient to penetrate our shielding. Long-range surveillance indicates that their nearest military base has dispatched 30 ships. They are attempting to mask their approach behind the nebula." Walker smirked slightly. "Predictable. They're testing the waters, seeing how we respond." Lieutenant Ross, seated at the sensor station, nodded. "They're worried, ma'am. Their caution is justified. They think we're a damaged warship, but they're treating us as if we could destroy them at any moment." "Good," Walker said. "Fear keeps them from making reckless choices, but we're not here to start a war. We need to establish contact before their paranoia gets the better of them." First Officer Miller spoke up. Shall we initiate communications, Captain? Or wait for them to make the first move? Walker considered a direct transmission could be seen as an act of dominance, but waiting too long could make the aliens more anxious. Send a message, she decided. Something simple, non-threatening, let them know we are here, and we are watching. Atlas executed the order, transmitting a brief encoded signal toward the alien station. The message contained no words, only a calm, pulsing light pattern in mathematical intervals, an unmistakable invitation for dialogue. The bridge fell silent as they waited. Seconds passed, then minutes, and then... Incoming transmission! Ross called out. Put it through, Walker ordered. The main screen flickered, and the image of a blue-scaled alien appeared, its four-fingered hand twitching slightly. Commander Reed's expression was guarded, his throat sac expanding with stress. Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. State your purpose. Walker stepped forward. I am Captain Evelyn Walker of the HMS Thunder. We come in peace. Reed hesitated, his pupils narrowing. You are human? Yes, Walker confirmed. And we have no hostile intent, but let's not pretend your people haven't already mobilized a response. I assume you are discussing what to do about us. Even now, I suggest we talk before this situation escalates. Reed's mandibles twitched slightly in thought. The Council will not make decisions lightly. You must understand. Humanity is a subject of great caution in our history. I understand, Walker said. But let's be clear. We did not come here as conquerors nor as victims. We came here as explorers. What happens next is up to your people. A long silence followed, then Reed spoke. I will relay your message, but understand this. My people do not trust easily. Walker nodded. Neither do mine, but trust has to start somewhere. The transmission ended, and the bridge crew let out a collective breath. Walker turned to Miller. Now we wait, and let's hope they make the right choice. Back in the council chamber, Reed's report played out on the central screen. The room remained tense as the last words echoed through the air. Ambassador Green turned to the council leader. They reached out first. That alone should tell us they are not here to attack. We must consider a diplomatic approach. Admiral Stone looked unconvinced. Or they are simply lulling us into complacency. Enough, the council leader said. We will deliberate. The fate of our response will shape history. We cannot afford to be rash. As the council prepared to vote, the weight of their decision loomed over them. This was the moment that would decide whether the galaxy would see humanity as a potential ally, or the greatest threat it had ever known. The Galactic Council chamber remained in uproar. Representatives from 12 different species engaged in heated arguments, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of tension. The holographic image of the human warship, HMS Thunder, still rotated in the center of the chamber, its sleek and formidable design a silent reminder of the crisis unfolding on their border. Admiral Stone slammed his scaled fist against the table. Every second we waste allows them to fortify their position. We must act now before they establish a foothold. This is a prelude to invasion. Ambassador Green shot him a sharp glare, her silver skin shimmering under the artificial lighting. We have no evidence to support that claim, Admiral. They haven't fired a single shot. If we attack first, we may be triggering the very war we seek to avoid. A heavy silence fell over the room as the council leader, an ancient being with deep, contemplative eyes, raised his forearms for order. We must assess our options carefully. We cannot afford to make a mistake. Our scouts report that the human ship has powered up its outer hull systems. It's a show of force, but they have not acted aggressively. We need to understand their intentions before we commit to a path we cannot return from. Across the room, General Rock, the burly, stone-skinned leader of the heavy worlder forces, leaned forward. My great-grandfather fought alongside humans during the colony wars. He spoke of their cunning. They never reveal their true hand until it is too late. If they are here, it is because they have already decided their next move. The only question is whether we are prepared. Another representative, a tall, insected being with iridescent wings, spoke up. Then we must establish communication immediately. If we delay, our fleets may act on fear rather than reason. The council leader nodded. Very well, send a diplomatic signal. Offer them the opportunity to explain themselves, but our forces will remain at the ready. If they show any sign of hostility, we will respond in kind. Aboard HMS Thunder, Captain Walker stood at the command station, arms folded as she watched the readings from their long-range scanners. The alien fleet was still mobilizing, their ships maneuvering cautiously as they prepared for a possible engagement. Their fear was evident, and that was precisely the outcome Walker had anticipated. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from the alien command station," reported Lieutenant Ross. "Encrypted signal, diplomatic frequency, they're asking for a parley." Walker exchanged a glance with First Officer Miller. "Looks like they're finally ready to talk." She turned toward the main display. "Patch them through, let's see what they have to say." A moment later, the holographic projector flickered to life, revealing the image of a tall, aged figure with deep-set eyes and 4 arms. The being's expression was carefully neutral, but Walker could detect the tension in its posture. "This is Council Leader Thran of the Galactic Collective," the alien said in a measured tone. "You are trespassing in a sector of space under our jurisdiction. State your purpose." Walker kept her expression calm. "Council Leader Thran, I am Captain Sarah Walker of the HMS Thunder, representing the Terran Federation. We are not here as an act of aggression but as explorers. Our vessel has suffered minor navigational errors due to a malfunction in our long-range systems. We mean no harm." A murmur of voices could be heard from Thran's side of the transmission, though their words were indistinct. The council leader's eyes narrowed slightly. "Your presence here has caused considerable concern. Humanity's reputation precedes you. There are those among us who believe your arrival is the first step toward conflict. How do you respond to that accusation?" Walker chose her words carefully. "Humanity has made mistakes in the past. We do not deny that, but we have also grown beyond those mistakes. We have no interest in war. We seek cooperation, not conquest." Thran studied her for a long moment before responding. "You ask us to trust you, yet you arrive cloaked in deception. Your ship feigned battle damage to lure us into a false sense of security. That is not the act of a peaceful envoy." Walker didn't flinch. "It was necessary. Your forces are numerous. We needed to assess the situation before revealing ourselves fully. It was a precaution, not a deception. If we had wanted to attack, we would have done so already." There was another pause. Finally, Thran exhaled slowly. "We will discuss this further within the Council. Until then, your ship will not advance further into our space. If you attempt to do so, our fleet will respond accordingly. Do I make myself clear?" Walker gave a respectful nod. "Crystal, Council Leader, we will await your decision." The transmission ended, and the bridge crew let out a collective breath. First Officer Miller leaned against his console. "That went better than expected." Walker smirked. "That was just the opening move. Now we wait for their next play." As the Council debated their response, and the alien fleet remained at a tense standoff with HMS Thunder, both sides knew that the coming hours would determine whether this encounter would lead to war or to something far greater, an alliance that could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Galactic Council chamber was in disarray. The revelation of a mysterious new force approaching the sector had thrown all diplomatic negotiations into turmoil. Even the most skeptical council members could no longer deny that a larger danger lurked beyond the fragile standoff with the humans. A new series of urgent discussions erupted within the council, each faction pushing for their own course of action. Some members advocated for an immediate alliance with humanity, recognizing that their advanced technology might be the only hope of survival. Others, like Admiral Stone, were still deeply distrustful, unwilling to cede any control to a species whose power remained largely unknown. Meanwhile, aboard the HMS Thunder, Captain Walker observed the growing sensor readings with a mixture of intrigue and concern. "Atlas, confirm threat assessment. Is this fleet behaving like a first contact scenario, or does this look like an attack formation?" she asked, her voice sharp with focus. The ship's AI responded instantly, projecting a holographic display of the unknown fleet. "The vessels are of unknown origin. Their energy output is massive, exceeding both human and galactic collective. Standards analysis suggests an aggressive posture. If they continue on this trajectory, they will reach the collective border in approximately 6 hours." Walker exhaled slowly. They had barely begun diplomatic maneuvering with the collective, and now a third party was entering the mix, potentially appending everything. "Miller, tactical assessment. If we were to engage, do we have the firepower to handle this?" she asked. The first officer glanced at the readouts and frowned. "We could hold our own against a fleet of this size under normal circumstances, but we have no idea what kind of weapons they have. Going in blind would be a mistake." Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Green made her stance clear. We can no longer afford hesitation. Humanity has extended a diplomatic hand, and now we face an existential threat. If we do not act together, we may not have the luxury of debating this any longer. She turned toward Admiral Stone, her expression firm. I propose we request direct military assistance from the humans. We share our intelligence, and we formulate a joint strategy. If we do not, we risk annihilation. Stone gritted his teeth but knew she was right. Pride had to be set aside in the face of this unprecedented threat. Reluctantly, he turned to the council leader and gave a stiff nod. Send the request to the humans. Let us hope they are as willing to work with us as they claim. On board HMS Thunder, the message from the Galactic Council was received and reviewed with careful deliberation. Captain Walker smirked slightly. Well, it seems they finally realize that we're not the biggest threat they need to worry about. She turned to her officers. All right, people, we are officially moving into joint operations. Let's show them what real cooperation looks like. Prepare battle plans, and get me aligned to their command. As the mysterious fleet closed in, an uneasy but necessary alliance formed between humanity and the Galactic Collective. They would face this new enemy together. For better or worse, the final battle for survival was about to begin. The massive war zone over the contested sector burned with the fury of countless energy discharges, missile trails, and the wreckage of shattered vessels. The unknown enemy force had struck without warning, revealing a terrifying level of coordination and overwhelming firepower that neither humanity nor the Galactic Collective had expected. Where once two opposing sides stood on the brink of war, now they found themselves fighting together against a far greater threat. Captain Walker stood at the command station of HMS Thunder, her jaw set as she surveyed the unfolding chaos on the holographic tactical display. The enemy, a race of biomechanical constructs with eerie precision, was cutting through the Collective's fleet with ruthless efficiency. Their weapons punched through shields like they were paper, their ships moved in perfect unison, and worst of all, they never hesitated. These creatures knew no fear, no emotion, only a cold and calculating drive to annihilate anything in their path. Status report, she barked, her voice carrying across the tense bridge. The Collective's primary battleships are falling back, but they're taking heavy losses. Lieutenant Ross reported. Their formations are breaking down. If we don't intervene now, they'll be wiped out. Walker exhaled sharply. Then we make our move. Atlas, full combat activation. Drop all stealth protocols and bring weapons to full power. Let's give these bastards something to worry about. The ship's AI responded instantly. Acknowledged, Captain. All combat systems now at peak operational capacity. Enemy targeting sensors adjusting in response. We have their attention. Across the battlefield, the previously dormant warship transformed plasma turrets, missile launchers, and kinetic railguns extended from hidden compartments, lighting up as they prepared to unleash their fury. The pulse of the Thunder's engines changed, the vessel shifting from its deceptive passive mode into a fully armed war machine. The enemy had likely assumed the ship was already operating at full capacity. But that was a fatal mistake. Target the lead battleships, Walker ordered. Fire at will. The bridge rumbled as the first volley was unleashed. Hyper-accelerated railgun rounds tore through the void, impacting the biomechanical ships with devastating force. The alien hulls, once impervious to collective weaponry, buckled and ruptured under the sheer kinetic energy. Explosions blossomed in space, consuming enemy vessels in spectacular fireballs. The collective ships that had been retreating now stopped, their crews watching in astonishment as the human vessel single-handedly turned the tide. Admiral Stone, aboard his flagship, quickly sent a transmission. Captain Walker, what the hell are you doing? We thought your ship was damaged. Walker smirked. That was the idea. Admiral thought it was best to keep a few surprises up our sleeve. Now, are you going to sit there, or are we doing this together? Stone hesitated only for a moment before responding. All ships, reform defensive lines around the human vessel. Use their firepower as cover and push forward. For the first time in history, human and collective warships fought side by side. The Thunder led the charge, cutting through the enemy ranks with devastating efficiency. Collective battleships, inspired by the sheer might of their new ally, rallied behind them, coordinating their attacks for maximum impact. The battle that had once seemed hopeless now turned into a fierce counteroffensive. Yet the enemy was relentless. Just as victory seemed within reach, A new wave of massive biomechanical warforms emerged from the depths of space. These ships dwarfed even the largest collective dreadnoughts, their sheer scale making them look like floating fortresses of death, and they were heading straight for the Thunder. "New hostiles inbound!" Ross shouted. "They're bigger and meaner than anything we've seen so far." Walker clenched her fists. "Then we hit them harder. All hands brace for maximum power deployment." The ship's reactor surged to full capacity, the hull glowing with the energy coursing through its systems. The Thunder charged forward alone, drawing the enemy's attention while the Collective regrouped. The flagship's weapons roared, tearing into the monstrous warships. But the enemy vessels did not falter. They adapted, adjusting their defenses, growing stronger with every engagement. "They're learning from us," Atlas noted. "Tactics shifting to counter-human weaponry. If we do not act now, they will eventually outmaneuver us." Walker's mind raced. There was only one option left. "Prepare the overcharge cannon," she commanded, a heavy weight in her voice. "We end this now." A hushed silence filled the bridge. The overcharged cannon was humanity's trump card, an experimental weapon with enough energy to wipe entire fleets off the battlefield, but it was unstable, dangerous. It could turn the tide, or destroy them all. "Weapon charging," Atlas confirmed. 30 seconds until full capacity." Outside, the battle raged. The enemy warships, sensing the impending threat, began focusing all fire on the Thunder. Shields flared, hull plating melted, alarms blared, but the ship held firm. Then, the cannon fired. A blinding beam of concentrated energy lanced through space, carving through the enemy fleet like a god's wrath. One by one, the colossal warforms detonated in chain reactions, their immense frames unable to withstand the sheer force of the attack. Silence fell over the battlefield as the remaining enemy vessels disengaged, retreating into the void. The battle was over. As the smoke cleared, Admiral Stone opened a channel. His expression was one of awe and caution. "Captain Walker, I don't know whether to thank you or fear you." Walker exhaled, glancing at the damage reports. "Maybe a bit of both, Admiral, but I'd say we make a damn good team." For the first time in history, humanity and the Galactic Collective stood together, and the galaxy would never be the same again.